keep your eyes out on Mumbai Falcon.
Some interesting stuff coming up. Look forward to racing to the future.
Well, good afternoon to all the racing fans who've joined us from all across the world. My name is Ridhima Pathak and we're live from the Dubai Autodrome. Now, before we unearth as to what we've got in our hands today, let me give you a quick recap as to how this series has progressed. Well, round 2 of the 2022 Formula Regional Asian Championship came to Dubai from Abu Dhabi. And of course, the field gave all the viewers an edge of the seat thriller. Also, Hadrian David was lightning quick all weekend. Now, Hadrian David had his maiden series victory on the 4.29-kilometer international configuration of the Dubai circuit. But things have changed. And to tell us more, I've got with me Jake Sanson. Jake, of course, the track has changed. Take me through it. What is the configuration now?
So essentially now we've moved from the international circuit here at the Dubai Autodrome to the Grand Prix circuit. That means it's going to be the full length of 5.39 kilometers. Now a lot of the circuit is going to be similar, but instead of turning right through turn 2, they're going to turn left and they will use the full configuration that the circuit is famous for the Dubai 24 hours. Now that actually means that the setup is going to be very different because the circuit will not be quite as fast flowing in the opening sector. It's a little bit more tight, a little bit more twisty and a lot more technical. The tyres will be worked in a slightly different way, so they will grain more differently, and that means that the drivers and the teams have to be a little bit more prepared to face that. Plus, from last week to this, the temperatures have gone up again, so we are now pushing 30 degrees Celsius at about 4 p.m. So obviously the temperatures are going to have to be changed as well, as will the tyre pressures. So teams are trying to second guess where they can find the ultimate pace. It's adapting every week we race.
That's right. So where can they? Tell me. Where can they find the ultimate pace? How do they sort of settle down with the weather that we have? Of course, we spoke about the tyre regulations throughout last weekend. So where can they find the pace?
It's a good question because essentially they only have a few different areas where they can find a little bit more speed from the car. They have to work a little bit more on the aero of the car to try and tweak the settings of the front and rear wings and the tyre pressure. That's really where the key factor is going to be. And in qualifying, it's even more important this weekend than it was last weekend. The circuit is longer. There's fewer margins for error, and considering how close it is here, it's going to be very, very costly. If they get a bad couple of qualifying laps, then the whole weekend is compromised. So they really have to come out of the blocks fighting. They need to put up their A game. All of the hard work they did yesterday in the practice sessions and in the warm-up this morning, it's really going to be interesting to see who's come out on top.
That's right. Now, we had 26 cars on the grid last weekend. It's 27 for new drivers. Take me through the field.
So, yeah, we've got 4 additions to the field this weekend. We have Owen Tangevelu, the Frenchman. We also have Francesco Braschi, the Italian. And we have Michael Belov, who has been racing in FIA Formula 3 in the last couple of seasons. But the big name back this weekend is Patrick Pasma. He won a couple of races last year and was obviously a big contender. So just like Pierre-Louis Chauvet, he's returned to the series mid-season. And his presence is actually going to make things very interesting because obviously the established guard this year, they want to fight for the title. So it will be very tricky to know how well they'll go.
Definitely, Jake. There's plenty to look forward to. For now, it's time for the qualifying. You guys stay tuned.
So as you can see, folks, the competitors are out on circuit now and they are getting us up to speed. Once again, it is going to be 2 qualifying sessions here in the Formula Regional Asian Championship 2022, and it will be a fabulous battle once again. The cars haven't changed, a few of the drivers have, and the challenge is going to be even tougher than 7 days ago. Let's remind you of how things stack up in the Formula Regional Asian Championship as we head into this 3rd weekend of the season, because it's obviously going to be very, very exciting all the way through from the get-go. But we have Arthur Leclerc currently leading the championship after taking his first win of the season in the 5th race of the year, which was round 2, race 2. He took his first win, having had a couple of podiums at Yas Marina, and he has 73 points in the championship standings. Next up is Hadrian David, who had a fantastic weekend last week in Dubai and scored more points than anybody else. 2 wins and a 4th place. That puts him right into the hunt for the championship. He actually scored 62 points last weekend, and he has 64 total. So that shows you just how different his weeks were from Dubai to Abu Dhabi. And Hadrian David, the Frenchman, is hoping he can continue that trend. Another Frenchman is right up at the sharp end, Isaac Hajar, the Red Bull young gun for the high-tech Grand Prix team, and he is obviously going to want to make sure that this weekend he can score a victory. He's had podiums, 3 of them, all in 3rd place, so now he wants to hit the top spot, so that's got to be his goal. Sadly, we've had to say goodbye to the Italian Gabriele Mini. He is now out of the car, and he will return to Europe. His place has been taken in the team by the Frenchman Owen Tangevelu, the Frenchman who will be filling out the seat for the rest of the year. Pepe Marti is currently the leading rookie in the championship. He is in 5th in the standings, just 1 point ahead of the Colombian Sebastian Montoya. In the Rookie Cup itself, Pepe Marti is actually 10 points ahead of Sebastian Montoya, but that is a separate championship. It's just for the rookies, that one, so let's not confuse the issue. Dino Beganovic is 7th in the standings with 48 points after finishing 2nd in race 2, round 2. Gabriel Bortoletto got a win in race 2, round 1 at Yas Marina, and he is 8th in the standings. The other Red Bull young gun, Jack Crawford, is tied with him on points in 8th, although currently it goes to Bortoletto on countback, because Bortoletto has a race win, Crawford does not. And Lorenzo Fluscia is 10th in the standings on 42 points. They are the 10 drivers who are closest to each other in the rankings, 31 points separating them after 2 weekends with 3 weekends to go and all to play for. Now, I mentioned that last weekend Pierre-Louis Chauvet returned to the series. This weekend, Patrick Pasma, the Finnish driver, returns to the series, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do for the Evans GP squad in car number 2. The Italian Francesco Braschi, the Russian Michael Belov, and the Frenchman Owen Tangevelu are the other new boys, I should say, to come into the weekend, although of course Michael Belov is also a returning driver. He raced in the Formula Regional Asian Championship last in 2020 when it was under the guise of Formula 3 Asia. So it's been 2 years since he has raced in this championship, and he is back up to speed and already starting to get some fast times under his belt. So the drivers are getting themselves up to speed and they are getting some lap times in. It is Arthur Leclerc who has come straight out of the block ahead of his 2 Mumbai Falcons teammates, Sebastian Montoya and Dino Beganovic. Now, one of the interesting factors this weekend is that because the circuit is longer and the temperatures are higher, a lot of the data from last week has had to be taken with a pinch of salt, because essentially now the teams have got to recalibrate and reconfigure the data so that it works in their favour for this particular race weekend. So it is going to be very tricky to see who is going to get the best of it. Hello to all those of you who are watching qualifying. You've tuned in at exactly the right moment. And of course, you can follow all of the action through the weekend on the Mumbai Falcons Racing pages, both here on YouTube and also across Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Great to have your company. Any questions, do please ask them. I'll do my very best to answer them. And hopefully we will have another merry and bright weekend here at Dubai Autodrome. You can see the heat haze is even higher this week than it was last. So already the temperatures are more increased than they were last week. So it's going to be a fascinating battle. This is also going to be the last weekend of the championship for 2 drivers in particular. The first of those is the Swiss ace Joshua Dufek for the high-tech Grand Prix team, who has been battling for the rookie standings. There was actually the 2nd rookie past the line in last week's 3rd race, finishing 10th overall after an incredible battle where he was in the top 10 for the entirety of. A great performance from the young Swiss. But we're also going to say goodbye to the Colombian sensation Sebastian Montoya this weekend. This will be his last weekend in the car. car before he returns to Europe to prepare for his weekend. And to prove the point, Sebastian Montoya crosses the line and goes fastest with a 1:55.869. He clearly wants to finish on a high, and he is just a fraction of a second quicker than Paul Aron. 0.167 is the deficit. Jack Crawford now goes second fastest, in fact, the Red Bull Junior driver. So he goes into second place. Whoa, that's how hard Dino Beganovic is pushing. My goodness, that was more rallycross than it was single-seater. But the Super Swede is doing an absolutely fantastic job. Dynamite Dino, as he is known, is really pushing it in this first qualifying session. Now, a reminder how the qualifying session works. The times in this session will set the grid for race 1. The times from the second session will set the grid for race 3. The race 2 grid will be decided by the results from race 1, with the top 10 positions reversed. So that is how the 3 race grids will be set. Isaac Hajar has just gone fastest. The Frenchman in the Red Bull Junior car from High Tech GP has just gone top spot. Montoya is second. Fornaroli has gone into third position. That's a surprise. Leonardo Fornaroli has been there or thereabouts in the top 10, but never as high as P3. So excellent work from Leonardo Fornaroli. And then it is Jack Crawford ahead of Paul Aron and Pierre-Louis Chauvet, who's already looking a lot faster this week than he was last week. There is the 23. That is the Pinnacle Motorsport car of Pepe Marti, the Spanish driver. Now, car 16 has had its lap 3 time deleted, so that is Lorenzo Fluscher's time being deleted for track limits. I'm sure he's got another fast lap in the tank. As across the line, the Mumbai Falcons number 10, Dino Beganovic, goes 4th quickest, 1:55.9 for him. There is his 2 teammates, Arthur Leclerc, who goes up to 5th. And Montoya, does he take the fast time? Yes, he does. 1:55.4. So Montoya is leading the way once again, just as he did in qualifying at Yas Marina, the very first race of the season. So Sebastian Montoya is getting back to what he does best. He says that last week was a blip, but it was also ancient history. He's going to come out of the blocks fighting, and he is going to go for another victory to round off. He wants to end his 3-weekend campaign as the top rookie in the championship. He may not stay there because obviously missing a couple more race weekends is going to hamper him in the long run, but he wants to prove to the world that he could have fought for the championship title. So up to 9th place comes Fluscher, doing a good job there in 9th position, just in between the pinnacles of Delano Van 't Hoff and Pierre-Louis Chauvet. Oliver Goether's doing well on his return. He couldn't race last week in the end. And there is Francesco Braschi, 12th position in front of Owen Tangevelu, 2 of the new faces. Then Josh Dufek, then Hamda Al-Kubaisi, the youngest of the family, in 15th at the moment, ahead of Nicola Maranangeli. And then 17th is the Hungarian, Leventa Ravesh. Ayato Iwasaki of the Philippines is next up. And then it is Amna Al-Kubaisi, who is in 19th ahead of Khaled Al-Kubaisi, the leading master, who is actually faster at the moment than several of the other competitors in the field. David Morales is in 21st, Salih Aluch and Thomas Luedia next. Then Frederick Lubin, who hasn't quite got up to speed yet, nor has Pepe Marti, Michael Belov, or I was going to say Patrick Pasma, but Pasma has just banged in a lap which is a 1:56.339 and has gone 11th. Belov has just gone 1:56.5 to go 12th. So they are now back into the action. The only top runner who hasn't set a competitive lap time yet is Pepe Marti, the Spaniard, who is down at the back of the field on a 2-minute flat .3, but he is definitely going to increase his speed over the course of the session. So an absolutely fascinating battle so far from the contenders. And great to see just how exciting it is going to be. So Farhan K asks, is Ollie Behrman here this weekend or next weekend? The answer is next weekend. He will actually take over the car currently being driven by Sebastian Montoya. So Montoya will vacate the Mumbai Falcons car and he will hand it over to the Italian F4 champion from last year, Oliver Behrman, who will make his first race appearance in a Formula Regional car. Big shoes to fill for the young man from Chelmsford in Essex as he takes over from Sebastian Montoya, who has been an absolute flash attack sensation here this season. There are the Evans GP Brigade. Some fantastic battles from them so far this season. They've kind of been under the radar so far this year, but the Evans squad still doing a very strong job in the midfield. There is the 30. And that is Michael Belov returning to the Formula Regional Asian Championship after a 2-year leave of absence, but he did race in 6 races in FIA Formula 3 a couple of seasons ago, so his calibre and his credence are not to be questioned. So he's definitely going to be one to watch. His teammate this weekend is also a returning face. Patrick Pasma of Finland will be up at the sharp end. And let's not forget that he won a couple of races last year at the tail end of the field. And that is ultimately the thorn in the side that may have denied Johan Darawalla of taking the Formula Regional Asian Championship in the end last year. So a very interesting battle ahead of them. So for race 1, Montoya, who was looking a little bit doubtful after free practice yesterday, whatever Mumbai Falcons had for breakfast this morning, I want some, because they are definitely now starting to get back to where they belong, up at the front end of the field. Just a whisker in front of Isaac Hajar, but certainly Sebastian Montoya has come out of the blocks fighting hard. There is the number 7. That is the high-tech GP machine of Joshua Dufek, who is making solid progress as he hopes to bow out of his Formula Regional Asian campaign on a strong note as well. Great performances from him so far. And there's going to be some interesting news in the pipeline for him in the future. Watch this space, because it could be very entertaining. Now, there is Owen Tanjavelu in the high-tech number 92. This is his first weekend of the championship, as he now makes his impression on the season. His fellow novice this weekend, Francesco Braschi, is currently running in 15th place. So the new boys are actually doing a very good job indeed, because we've got Pasma in 11th, Belov in 12th, Braschi is 15th, and Tanjavelu is in 16th. So none of the new boys have struggled to get up to speed at all with the new car. So that is going to be very interesting once we get up to racing. A couple of them may even get a chance to go for the reverse grid pole. There is Patrick Pasma, the very popular Finn, who has returned to his beloved Evans GP squad. They got on like a house on fire last year, worked very well indeed, and then eventually came up with a couple of victories at Yas Marina at the end of the season. So watch out for Patrick Pasma. He's definitely going to be a contender. He and Chauvet are currently battling over 10th position. If either of them finishes there in race 1, then they'll be looking at pole position for race 2 with the reverse grid positions. So there are the current ranks, and there is the current order. So Sebastian Montoya is on the top spot. Isaac Hajar in second place from Crawford, Fornaroli, Aaron and Beganovic. We're just currently watching the progress of the teams as they are on track completing laps, but several of them are out of position at this point. So it is currently Sebastian Montoya out in front. So 30 seconds or so left of the qualifying session. Isaac Hajar is trying to wrestle away pole position from Sebastian Montoya. The last qualifying laps are coming in. Lorenzo Flusha has crept up into the top 10 of late, which is very good news indeed for him. But it is currently Montoya, Isaac Hajar, Jack Crawford, Leonardo Fornaroli, Paul Aron and Dino Beganovic in the top 6. Then Arthur Leclerc, Delano Van Toff. Then it is Lorenzo Flusha and Pierre-Louis Chauvet from Patrick Pasma and Michael Belov. Nicola Marinangeli, Oliver Goethe, Francesco Braschi, Owen Tanjavelu, Josh Dufek and Hamda Al-Kubaisi from Levi Revej, Ayato Iwasaki. Pepe Marti can't really get above 21st at the moment. Checkered flag is out. So checkered flag is out. And we're going to see who comes across the line first. It is Lorenzo Flusha and Hamda Al-Kubaisi that take the flag first. They do not improve from their positions. Amna Al-Kubaisi comes home on a 158.2 by comparison to her sister, who did a 157.0. As Delano Van Toff comes 9th. Pepe Marti with his final flying lap gets 7th fastest. That's better. So Pepe Marti right up at the sharp end. Isaac Hajar gets a 155.943, which is not the fastest lap of the entire session. Certainly it's the fastest lap of the last half of the session. But Sebastian Montoya is still top spot. Sebastian Montoya is up at the front end of the field. So he is going to be in pole position. There is the aggregate times across qualifying. So Sebastian Montoya is going to be pole in front of Hajar, Crawford and Leonardo Fornaroli. That is a big surprise, but a very pleasant one. He's finally got his act together, it seems, and Leonardo Fornaroli justifiably in 4th position on the starting grid for race 1. He'll be happy with that. Aron will be in 5th, Beganovic will be 6th, then Pepe Marti and Arthur Leclerc from Delano Van Toff and Lorenzo Flusha. Then Pierre-Louis Chauvet, Patrick Pasma, Michael Belov, Nicola Marinangeli, Oliver Goethe and Francesco Braschi. Then Joshua Dufek, Owen Tanjavelu, Hamda Al-Kubaisi and Leventi Revej. The last few drivers will be Ayato Iwasaki, Frederick Lubin, and then it will be the Al-Kubaisi family, Amna in front of Khaled, David Morales, Salih Yalouch and Thomas Luedi. There are the 27 cars. separated by 4.3 seconds. Last minute update, car 18, track limits at turn 12. The lap has been deleted. That is Francesco Braschi. So unfortunately, that means potentially his fastest lap time, his fastest 2 lap times, in fact, may well have been deleted. So that's going to drop Francesco Braschi down into 16th place again, I do believe. So that obviously has to be taken into consideration. There is a short break in between sessions, and you can see that the Mumbai Falcons team are already going to work on the cars, changing tyres ready ahead of the session. The object of the tyre regulations this year, of course, meaning that every car has 3 sets of tyres to take them through the entire weekend, starting from free practice. And essentially, all 3 sets of tyres should have had some form of running in them before race 1 begins. Now, not every team chooses to do this. There are some teams, in terms of strategy, that decide to save a fresh set of tyres for the races themselves. But this is a double-edged sword, because yes, you have a fresh set of tyres going into a race, which gives you an advantage compared to your opponents, but you haven't used that fresh set of tyres for one of the qualifying sessions. So what that does mean is that you could compromise your starting position. It's very much harder to get a fast lap on tyres that are not fresh. Although I was speaking to Hamda Al-Kubaisi earlier in the weeks ahead, and she actually said that, interestingly, what she has found with this car, it's not universal across the board, but what she has found with the car is that she actually gets more out of it once the tyres have worn in a bit. She actually gets more speed and more grip from the car once the tyres have actually bedded in a little bit. So it's not exactly an exact science. And different teams and drivers have interpreted it in different ways. But the teams are now going through the motions, setting their cars up, ready for Q2. So a look back over the moments from Q1. Sebastian Montoya getting fast out of the blocks and banging in a time of a 1:55.467. 0.3 of a second ahead of the Red Bull Junior Isaac Hajar and his fellow Red Bull young gun Jack Crawford, although they are, of course, racing in 2 different teams. For Sebastian Montoya, fresh out of the blocks, his teammate Dino Beganovic pushing hard, but he couldn't quite beat Leonardo Fornaroli and Paul Aron. They are in the top 6. A very interesting battle from them. Pepe Marti fighting his way back to P7. Arthur Leclerc, championship leader, managing to get 8th fastest time. Dilano Van Toff and Lorenzo Flusha will be there together in the top 10. Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Patrick Pasma, race winners last year, 11th and 12th. Michael Belov, the returning Russian, in 13th place. Nicola Maranangeli is 14th from Oliver Goethe, Francesco Braschi, Joshua Dufek and Owen Tanjavelu. Hamda Al-Kubaisi is 19th on her home soil. Levente Revej is 20th in front of the Philippine star, Ayato Iwasaki. And then Frederick Lubin of Great Britain, the 2 Al-Kubaisi sibling, daughter and father, I should say, Amna Al-Kubaisi and Khaled Al-Kubaisi, the leading master. Then it is David Morales, Salih Yalouch and Thomas Luedi. Checkered flag went the way of Sebastian Montoya. So there is the high-tech team just getting themselves ready in cars 5, 6, 7 and 92, just to break up the flow there, Owen Tanjavelu. And we can see the Pinnacle Motorsport team getting themselves ready as well. They really have come out of the blocks fighting very well indeed. The Black Arts Racing crew are down there as well, getting themselves up to speed. And we heard obviously last week from one of their young test drivers and race mechanics, Alistair Young, who was telling us about the in-depth of the tyre regulations. If you want to go and have a look at that, then go back, of course, to our Mumbai Falcons race coverage from last week ahead of race 3, and you can see how that is all explained in detail. Great to catch up with young Alistair, and the Black Arts Racing team have done a fantastic job. The sun is heating up here in Dubai as we prepare for Q2. Finish in F4 racing. So Sebastian Montoya will be starting race 1 later this afternoon from pole position, just as he did at Yas Marina in the first round of the championship. His teammates are going to be right over him over the course of proceedings. Dino going 6th and Arthur Leclerc going 8th. The 2 Red Bull young guns in High Tech and Abu Dhabi Racing by Prema, Isaac Hajar and Jack Crawford are 2nd and 3rd. The big surprise from Q1 though is Leonardo Fornaroli, the leading driver for High Tech, getting a brilliant lap in 4th place. And the comeback kid, Paul Aron, is up in 5th position. He'll be delighted with that, having had some difficult performances in qualifying in the previous 2 weekends. Pepe Marti 7th, Arthur Leclerc is 8th, as we mentioned, and then rounding out the top 10, Dylan Van Toff and Lorenzo Flusha in front of last year's race winners, Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Patrick Pasma. Don't go away, Q2 is on the way.
Keep your eyes out on Mumbai Falcon.
Some interesting stuff coming up. Look forward to racing to the future.
So we're getting underway once again for Q2 as we battle away for the action once more here this weekend. It is going to be a fantastic battle as we run around on the circuit. Connor Pelkmans asks the question, no Hadrian David this round? You're absolutely right. He is not racing, nor is his teammate Gabriel Bortoleto, who also took a race win over the course of the season, as obviously it is still chop and change and musical chairs in the world of Formula Regional Asian Championship. Some drivers stay, some drivers disappear. And unfortunately for those fans of Hadrian David and Gabriel Bortoleto of the 3Y Technology UAE team, they are not going to be racing this weekend. Hopefully they'll be back later in the season, but they have obviously got their European Championships and training regimes to focus on. Varun Nair asks, what happened in Q1? Well, very sensible question. Sebastian Montoya came out of the blocks with a brilliant lap, a 1:55.467, to emulate his qualifying performance at Abu Dhabi and grab the pole position time. He is ahead of the two Red Bull juniors, Isaac Hajar and Jack Crawford, who are second and third. Leonardo Fornaroli, picking up the mantle left over by his teammate Gabriele Mini, has gone fourth quickest in Q1. That is very impressive indeed from the Italian, who has not been as high as that all year. Paul Aron is back in action. He was fifth quickest in qualifying. And again, good to see that the Estonian has been able to be in a strong position from the off. Dynamite Dino, young Bogdanovic in 6th position in qualifying 1 from Pepe Marti, who left his best lap till the very last moment in 7th place. Arthur Leclerc, championship leader, was only 8th quickest in Q1, so that'll make his weekend very tricky. Delano Van Toff in 9th and Lorenzo Flusha in 10th. Now, we're going into Q2, and that is not a good sight at all. That is Thomas Luedi, and the engine cover has come off the car, as have the side pods. They've got a problem with Luedi's car, which is probably related to the lap time he did, a 1:59.7, which is not where we usually see him. We normally see him at the sort of pace that we got from Khaled Al-Kubaisi, who was a full 1.5 seconds quicker. So problems for Thomas Luedi, and they're going to be lucky to get him out for qualifying at all, looking at the way they're working on the car. Behind Van Toff and Flusha in the top 10 of Q1, we had Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Patrick Pasma, race winners from last year. They are just outside the top 10. Then Michael Belov, another driver returning to Formula Regional Asia after an absence of 2 seasons rather than 1. Nicola Marinangeli and Oliver Goethe. Then Francesco Braschi, another of the new faces this weekend, alongside Joshua Dufek, who will be racing in his final race weekend of the Formula Regional Asian Championship. Owen Tangevelu, the man who's moved into the high-tech team this weekend. Hamda Al-Kubaisi, Levente Ravej, Ayato Iwasaki and Frederick Lubin, and then Amna and Khaled Al-Kubaisi from David Morales, Salih Yalouch and Thomas Luedi. Now, there are some absences that we need to talk about, of course, as Francesco Braschi moves into the 3Y by Race GP team. It's goodbye to Adrian David and Gabriel Bortoletto for the time being. They'll still have Oliver Goethe and Lorenzo Flusha in the team, so they will still have a 3-car operation as opposed to a 4-car operation, but it's certainly with different drivers compared to the start of the season. Obviously, we are still waiting for more news out of the Black Arts Racing team. We only have 2 drivers, Thomas Luedi and Pierre-Louis Chauvet. At Mumbai Falcons, it's still the 3 that started the season, Dino Bogdanovic, Arthur Leclerc and Sebastian Montoya, but the latter will be racing in his last race weekend in the 2022 Championship, where he will be replaced by the superstar from Chelmsford in Essex in the United Kingdom, Oliver Behrman, who was last year's Italian F4 champion. High-Tech Grand Prix has had a little bit of a musical chairs moment as well, as Gabriele Mini has said goodbye, and he has handed his car over to the Frenchman Owen Tangevelu, who makes his debut this weekend. And there are 2 new faces at Evans GP, alongside Nicola Marinangeli and Frederick Lubin. To replace Chembolik Bassi, we now have Patrick Pasma and Michael Belov. So those are 2 returning stars to the fray. Everything else is pretty much as was. Abu Dhabi Racing by PREMA still has the 5 drivers it started the season with, Paul Aron and Jack Crawford, and the 3 members of the Al-Kubaisi family, Khaled, Hamda and Amna. So they're all together. And at the Evans GP Academy, which is the junior offshoot of the Evans GP team, we still have the Hungarian Levente Ravej and the American David Morales. And at Pinnacle Motorsport, we still have Pepe Marti, Delano Van Toff, Salih Yalouch and Ayato Iwasaki. That is the musical chairs from round 2 to round 3, all done and dusted. And you can see that the drivers are out on circuit trying to get their fast times under their belts. So across the line, the first driver out on track is Dino Bogdanovic, and his banker lap is a 2:10. You are not going to see a lap as slow as that from Dino Bogdanovic at the end of the session, unless mechanical problems intervene, because that is not the sort of speed that these guys have been doing. The fastest times that we saw from earlier on, 1:55. There is the team. Amit, Ariana et al. At Mumbai Falcons, watching on as their boys are doing a fantastic job. They are the 3 first cars across the line. They do seem to have a bit of a habit, the Mumbai Falcons, of being the first ones out on track. And from time to time, they are also the fastest in the sessions as well. There's Moy Tungakar putting up alongside Amit. It's been a fantastic battle from the Mumbai Falcons last season, and they have really come out of the blocks fighting fit in 2022 with an even stronger attack. The steely-eyed of those fans out there will have noticed they were on a slightly different circuit configuration to last week. Last week, we were on the international circuit, and this week, we are on the Grand Prix circuit. So, Nathan on YouTube asks, is Ollie Behrman coming in next round? Yes, he is. He'll be here next weekend, which will be, I do believe, on the Grand Prix circuit once again, unless the decision is changed. Varun Nair asks, is Isaac Hajar doing the full season? That is the plan. That's what he told me. So unless something dramatically changes in his schedule, the Red Bull youngster from France is going to be there for the whole season, as is the American Jack Crawford. The Mumbai Falcons team watching on. hoping that they can get 2 pole positions. I was speaking to the team prior to the race weekend beginning, and they're still reeling from the 1-2 finish that they got last week in race 2 between Artur Leclerc and Dino Beganovic. They had a win, they'd had a 1-2, and I said to Aditya Patel, who is looking after the F4 team, how likely is it for a 1-2-3 finish? And he said, well, we don't need quite as much luck as last year, which of course is fairly obvious because they only had 2 cars last year, never mind 3, but they're all pretty keen to get a 1-2-3 finish if they can. And certainly this weekend the cars do look very quick as Beganovic gets his first fast lap in, a 1:56.6. Leclerc goes quicker, 1:56.2. So it will be very interesting indeed. So the contention continues to battle. Jack Monaghan just reminding me that Isaac Hajar's heritage is actually mixed because he is Franco-Algerian. He is indeed, of course, and he is hoping to become the first African to compete in Grand Prix racing for a very long time indeed. There are the team from Mumbai Falcons watching on. They had a guest last week. The talented Indian star Johan Danavala was in town as he was on holiday. He's on holiday, he's not supposed to go to a racetrack, but try and keep a racing driver away from the racetrack. So Varun Nair pointing out that Isaac Hajar has a good shot at taking the lead in the championship. You're absolutely right. The absence of Hadrian David, who scored the most points last weekend, does indeed give Isaac Hajar a great chance of taking the lead in the championship. His closest opponent is Artur Leclerc, who is 12 points ahead of him in the standings. Get rid of Hadrian David and Gabriele Mini, because neither of them are going to be racing this weekend. They'll fall down the order. Pepe Marti is therefore technically 3rd in the standings on 54 points. Not bad for the young rookie. Then Sebastian Montoya, then Dino Beganovic, and then with Gabriel Bortoletto sitting out this weekend as well, it'll then be Jack Crawford and Lorenzo Flusha who will pick up the mantle. Sebastian Montoya almost coming to a stop as he lets cars through. So Montoya clearly wants to get in the slipstream of somebody, or wants to get a clear bit of road, one of the two. As Pepe Marti bounces back in style in Q2. He has gone fastest in front of Delano Van Toff, then Josh Dufek and Patrick Pasma. So session 2 already looking quite different to session 1, and it could be very interesting from that point on. We'll have to see how things develop. So Pepe Marti in front of Delano Van Toff, and then Joshua Dufek from Artur Leclerc. Patrick Pasma and Leonardo Fornaroli. Sebastian Montoya is 7th in front of Michael Belov. And then Pierre-Louis Chauvet. Paul Aron has just popped into 10th place in front of Dino Beganovic. And then Jack Crawford is 12th provisionally ahead of Lorenzo Flusha, who has just come forward. Nicola Mandanangeli, Hamdar Al-Kubaisi, Owen Tajavelu. And then Oliver Goethe ahead of Isaac Hajar, who has not really put in his fastest time yet. There is the Evans GP car of David Morales just going through, the American star for the Evans GP Academy. Trying to find his feet and get the fast time underneath him. So through the drivers come as they continue to find good parts of the circuit to go fast. Delano Van Toff now goes fast. It's the Dutchman for Pinnacle Motorsport. He missed the entirety of the first race weekend. He rather dramatically fell ill mid-weekend at Yas Marina. He was just about to go to his car for time qualifying, and he took a bit of a dizzy spell and ended up being ill for the rest of the weekend. Very unfortunate, because he was fighting fit and looking forward to going racing. And missing the first race of the weekend has definitely compromised the Pinnacle Motorsport team's progress. But Delano Van Toff has come straight out of the blocks. He was a race winner in the F4 UAE Championship last year, so he stepped up to Formula Regional Asia in 2022, and he's looking pretty mega already. Pepe Marti, 2nd place so far. Joshua Dufek is doing an amazing job, 3rd place for the Swiss. Suddenly, the high-tech cars have found raw pace again, and Joshua Dufek in particular is making great work of it as the Swiss runs in 3rd place. So Hoff, Marti, Dufek, Leclerc, Pasma, Fornaroli, Montoya, Belov, Chauvet and Paul Aron in the top 10. A second between the top 10. Dino Beganovic in 11th from Crawford, Flusha, Iwasaki and Maranangeli. Then Hamdar Al-Kubaisi in front of Owen Tanjavelu, Goethe, Hajar, Brashi, Revej. Then it is Amna Al-Kubaisi in front of David Morales, Sally Aluch, Frederick Lubin, who's really struggling this weekend. Then it is Khaled Al-Kubaisi, who for once is not the fastest master driver. He's won 5 out of the 6 races in the Masters category so far this year, looking for a dominant title win in the Masters class. And then Thomas Luedi, who is at the back of the field, but he has got a lap in, which at least is something compared to when we had the engine cover off at the start of the session. So an absolutely sensational run for the competitors thus far. Jack Monaghan points out we shouldn't be ruling out Jack Crawford if he has a good weekend. Very true indeed, because this weekend, all of a sudden, Jack Crawford has put all of the cobwebs to bed, and he has been going very quickly over the course of the weekend. Certainly in this session he needs to find a little bit more speed, but then we found that over the course of the first 2 weekends that being fast in Q1 does not automatically mean you're going to be fast in Q2, because you obviously have to balance the strategy. Once the fresh tyres go on, it's not easy to gauge who's going to get the best of it, and it's so close between the drivers in the field that the parity between Q2 and Q1 is very different. So Isaac Ajar has just crept up into 3rd position. That's going to do his championship standings no end of good, because his main rival in the championship, Arthur Leclerc, is behind him in P6. That's one of the things I love about Formula Regional Asia's new tyre regulations for 2022. It really does throw a cat amongst the pigeons. It mixes things up quite a lot. Q1 and Q2 usually has very different results, because you're having to try and figure out when to go on the fresh tyres, when to utilise them, and some drivers will even go on a set of tyres that have got a couple of laps in them already, just to get them a little bit up to speed, because some drivers are finding that you can go faster on a worn set of tyres than you can on a fresh set, which is usually against scientific common sense, but that's the way this car handles. So it's definitely going to be very exciting. 2 minutes to go, and it could well be Delano Van Toff who is on the top spot in qualifying, and that could be for the first time he'll get that opportunity to run from the front. Pepe Marti in 2nd place. Arthur Leclerc has come up to 3rd, though. He has displaced Isaac Ajar. That's good news for the Mumbai Falcons, as Arthur Leclerc has found a fast lap and gone up to 3rd position. Now, I don't think he's going to get another lap in, so that is obviously going to be very important for Arthur. He's found the lap time he needs to go top 3, but I'm not sure he's going to get back to the start-finish straight in time to start another lap. He backed right off the throttle. So Arthur Leclerc has been able to find a 3rd fastest lap time, and that is critical for the young Monegasque, because he really needed a strong lap time here to make it all go according to plan. So Delano Van Toff in front of Pepe Marti, and then Arthur Leclerc, Sebastian Montoya, Isaac Ajar. Joshua Dufek is still in a brilliant 6th place. And then Pierre-Louis Chauvet and Patrick Pasma are in the top 10. Leonardo Fornaroli strong again in 9th. And Lorenzo Flusha is in 10th place. Not a great session for several drivers outside the top 10 so far. Belov is 11th from Paul Aron, and Dino Beganovic way down in 13th. Jack Crawford is 14th at the moment with a few seconds to go. And then Ayata Iwasaki from Nicola Marinangeli and Oliver Gutta. Then Hamder Al-Kubaisi, Francesco Braschi, Owen Tanjavelu, Levente Revej, Frederick Lubin and Amner Al-Kubaisi from David Morales, Sally Yaluch, Khaled Al-Kubaisi and Thomas Luedi. So Sally Yaluch is currently looking at being the fastest driver from the Masters, and I'm afraid Arthur Leclerc's lap time for lap 7, which is the last one he's done, is going to be deleted, I do believe, for exceeding track limits at turn 2. So that is not good news for Arthur Leclerc. So once that is corrected, I have a feeling his lap time, apparently it was very similar in pace. So Arthur Leclerc, whilst going quicker, remains in 3rd. Montoya has crept up to 4th place as the checkered flag comes out. So Montoya is now 4th. Hajar is 5th from Dufek. Great job from Joshua Dufek. He's been consistent and getting better and better all the time. And there he is in P6, doing a majestic job of really fighting his corner. But Delano Van Toff, the Flying Dutchman, looks like he's going to be in pole position for this one. Leclerc and Montoya finish up in 3rd and 4th. So it's only Van Toff and Marti, really. Marti has come into the pits as well, so Pepe Marti. And there is Delano Van Toff, pole position in Q2. That means he will start race 3 from pole position. Excellent work from Delano Van Toff. Pepe Marti has done a great run as well. There's Oliver Goethe just finishing up. What can he do? He remains in 17th place. So it will be Delano Van Toff, the Flying Dutchman, from pole position. Alongside him on race 3 grid will be Pepe Marti in front of the Mumbai Falcons cars of Arthur Leclerc and Sebastian Montoya. Then Isaac Hajar will be 5th and Joshua Dufek in brilliant style will be 6th fastest. One final change as Hajar comes across the line. No, he does not improve. Pierre-Louis Chauvet in 7th. Patrick Pasmar in 8th place. Leonardo Fornaroli is 9th and Lorenzo Flusha is in 10th. Ahead of Michael Belov, Paul Aron, Dino Beganovic, Jack Crawford, Ayato Iwasaki, Nicola Marinangeli, Oliver Goether and Hamda Al-Kubaisi from Francesco Braschi, Owen Tangevelu, Leventa Ravej, Frederick Lubin, Amner Al-Kubaisi, David Morales, Salih Yalouch, Khaled Al-Kubaisi and Thomas Luedi. So, an absolutely fabulous battle, but pole position goes the way of Delano Van Toff. When we come back, I will be joining Ridimar in the pit lane.
Right, hello and welcome everybody, all the racing fans. Of course, we witnessed Q1 and Q2 of the Formula Regional Asian Championship 2022. It's been an interesting time because the circuits are longer, the weather is hotter. We had Sebastian Montoya taking on pole position from qualifying 1 and qualifying 2. Well, I've got, of course, Jake here to tell me all the details because I was right down. So take me through qualifying 2.
Well, Q2 was actually very, very different to Q1. A lot of the drivers that we expected to be at the front have not been able to repeat their same form. Yes, Sebastian Montoya was top 5, but it seems as though you can't really get a consistent lap time from one session to the other. So Delano Van Toff and the Pinnacle boys were able to get up on the front row of the grid. Pepe Marti up there as well, because he left his qualifying lap in Q1 very late, and he only managed to get 7th in Q1. So to be in 2nd place in the second session, it really shows that from one qualifying group to the next, you really don't know what to expect.
That's right. Now, for our viewers, if you could just take us through the change in strategy that the drivers have had between the two qualifiers.
That's a very good point, because sometimes the teams are finding that if they go on to older tyres, they can actually save themselves a set of tyres for later in the weekend and have a stronger race. And on the Grand Prix circuit here, that could be a winning strategy, because there are more overtaking opportunities here with the Grand Prix circuit, because it's longer. But however, there are teams that have found that actually they can get more out of the car with the tyres slightly worn than if you put fresh ones on. So it's difficult. With only 3 sets of tyres to go through the whole weekend from the start of practice, teams are still, even in this 3rd weekend of the championship, learning from race to race what is actually going to work. Plus, on top of that, you've also got tyre pressures on these tyres. Now, that is critical, and that can really change the face of a race meeting.
That's right. There are a lot of considerations, of course, in this particular race as we've moved to the Dubai Autodrome, considering the weather, of course, the tyre regulations. Having said that, what do you think of the Mumbai Falcons? They came in all guns blazing, especially in the qualifying 2, and then what happened? What changed?
It's a good question. It's hard to know either as well, because in the first session they were all really strong, very, very close to the mark. I guess it worked out very well for them, because obviously they've been able to be in a strong position out of the practice session. They had a good setup. They obviously knew how to get the most out of the car and out of the tyres in the first qualifying session. But then obviously you have to change tyres for Q2. Now, even if the track temperature goes up by a degree or the wind accelerates, those crosswinds on the far side of the circuit, it doesn't matter how well your car is set up for aerodynamic pressure, you're actually going to find mechanical grip depreciates in some of the slower corners. So there might be a few times out there where the drivers would have felt really comfortable in Q1 and were actually on the back foot in Q2. It's fascinating how it changes from session to session.
That's right. Well, of course, there are a lot of changes, a lot of drivers that you need to keep a lookout for. The sensation from last weekend, Hadrian David, is not on the grid. Sebastian Montoya, on the other hand, has taken pole position. And the last time the man had pole position, he had won the race for the Mumbai Falcons. Watch out for this driver and many more. You stay tuned to this page.
Keep your eyes out on Mumbai Falcon.
Some interesting stuff coming up. Look forward to racing to the future.